Hello, welcome to the Sutliffian Report. And we have quite a show for you to talk about what qualifications an imam has. But today, as we're a Christian show, and we always start first with a reading from God's Word. Today, we're reading from Acts 15, 1 to 5. And certain men which came down from Judea taught the brethren and said, Except you be circumcised after the manner of Moses, you cannot be saved. When therefore Paul and Barnabas had no small dissension and disputation with them, they determined that Paul and Barnabas and certain other of them should go up to Jerusalem unto the apostles and elders about this question. And being brought on their way by the church, they passed through Phoenice and Samaria, declaring the conversion of the Gentiles. And they caused great joy unto all the brethren. And when they were come to Jerusalem, they were received of the church and of the apostles and elders, and they declared all things that God had done with them. But there rose up certain of the sect of the Pharisees which believed, saying that it was needful to circumcise them and to command them to keep the law of Moses. Think about this claim of the Pharisees. They had been taught circumcision was a requirement to set them apart in the flesh. It was a hidden physical separation of who they are. Genesis 17:7 reveals this covenant was specifically for the Jews. For this passage speaks of the promised land as part of God's promise. Genesis 17 also speaks of how circumcision was an act that must be handed down and performed on children on the 8th day, and also on those who would be with them in devotion to their God. Christians believe that their faith can be taught to them by their parents. It can be held by parents. But that being a Christian is totally the choice of the individual. Paul, who had been a Pharisee of Pharisees, understood the meaning of the circumcision and understood his and Barnabas' call to share Christ with the Gentiles. The two of them had seen not only the changed hearts, but God's actions in and amongst the people. They were returning to share those joys. They were not there to boast or claim that they themselves had done anything, but that they had been witness to many miraculous actions of God simply by being willing vessels. Now, because they went unto Gentiles, they were being told those things that they had seen of God were wrong. I think Paul and Barnabas knew better. That's why they were going to deal with it. I kind of sit there and laugh when I read that, like, okay, tell us we're wrong, but the truth is you got to stand up for what you believe is right. And I think that's the danger we're facing today. We have a huge amount of society that is afraid to say something is wrong. When you do that, you give up. And I don't want to do that. I don't want to be part of society that gives up. And that's part of why we do this show pretty much every week. Believe it or not, we are on part 33. I'm like trying to figure out, are we on 33, 34? And I realize we have spent more than half a year at this point. We'll probably spend another year at least going through this. Why? Why every week? Well, it's because nobody else is doing it. Nobody else is daring enough to go through it piece by piece and look at the insanity of this. And unfortunately, the truth of the matter is this is very, very insane. And, people will laugh at me. I say it's insane. I'll keep mentioning it because the stuff that's in here, it's hard to believe. Why do I say that? Well, if you don't know, you're going to find out. Every week you'll find something that just makes you go, why? We've talked about the strangeness of the importance of farts. Wait, well, is there importance in farts? Well, if you fart, you can't have your prayers respected. If you burp, your prayers can't be accepted. If you do this or that, your prayers can't be accepted. What kind of a God says, I don't want to listen to your prayers? That's Allah. If you don't believe me, you have to read Sharia. Find out how many times the prayers get invalidated. When I'm done with this, I'm going to do a show when we finish the F section, we're gonna go through and we're gonna do a huge list that I'm gonna pull up. A huge list. Your prayers are invalidated for doing this. Your prayers are invalidated for doing that. Your prayers are invalidated if your clothes are not perfect. I mean, think about the insanity here. Now, they keep telling us Muslims get arrested for doing these crimes, and the first thing they say is they're not sane. Well, when you hear some of these requirements, or the lack of requirements, maybe there is a reason for some of the insanity. So let's take a look. We're going to start in F12.25. Now I'm laughing about this because this week when I called Usama, I says, you got to check some of this stuff for me. And he's like, wait a minute. I says, this explains things. And he's like, oh my gosh. I mean, I'm becoming I don't know if I would say I'm an expert, but I'm becoming a lot more knowledgeable in Sharia. He is the expert that I go to on the Qur'an whenever I want to know something that I don't know. But this is kind of mind-numbing. So what is the requirement for an imam? So Sharon, I'm going to start with you. Can you read F12.25 down to number 3? Sharon, are you here? I think you're muted. Okay.
I forgot to unmute myself. I'm sorry.
That's all right. Okay.
The one with the best right to be imam in order of preference when there is a disagreement is, number 1, the most learned in sacred law. Example, the rulings concerning with prayer. Even if he has not memorized any of the Quran except the Fatiha. Since the
Stop right there. Wait a minute. So do they have to know the Quran?
No.
What have we said? Has they mentioned the Quran any place about, and when we're talking about prayer, and it's all we've been doing for it feels like too long. This huge section on prayer. F is a huge section. And have we read any Quran passages? No.
No.
So this is, to me, the biggest humor. The most learned in Sharia. Actually, the term isn't Sharia here. The term is jurisprudence, which I still find humorous because they're not actually saying Sharia. Jurisprudence.
Isn't that
I mean,
sacred law there?
no. Well, jurisprudence is kind of the interpretation of the law.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, I mean, this is a problem altogether. So, yeah, the actual, this is the part that just kills me. The literal number 1 on the right, if you see it, says the one who has more knowledge of jurisprudence. That is not even saying Sharia. That's where I'm saying there's some difficulty. So you're going to read someone's interpretation of Sharia.
Oh.
So you're not even becoming the most knowledgeable in Sharia. You're becoming the most knowledgeable of someone's interpretation of Sharia. That could be problematic by itself. What if your version disagrees? Well, there's different versions of Sharia, but I mean, this again should make you think. Sharia is more important than the Quran. According to this statement, for you to pick an imam, the imam has to know Sharia. And can you read number 1 again? I'm sorry.
The most learned in sacred law, i.e., the rulings concerned with prayer. Even if he has not memorized any of the Quran except the Fatiha. Since the need in prayer for knowledge of its rules is practically unlimited, while the only Quran recital required is the Fatiha.
So think about that again. They only have to know Surah 1. Surah 1, by the way, we've been told by Islamic scholars is not part of the Quran. So he doesn't have to have any knowledge of the Quran. And if the Islamic scholars are right, it's not part of the Quran, then all these people following this Sharia on what to say and what to do, guess what? They're all wrong. Oh. And all this stuff here on section F, we could probably throw out. Wow. All right. Can you read number 2 there?
Sure. He who has memorized the most Quran, that's number 2. And then number 3. Sorry.
So if we're having a debate about who's the best candidate, so you have one guy who's memorized all of the Quran, he's probably going to come in. But here's the catch. If he doesn't know any of the Sharia, he's not going to be the best candidate. Doesn't that make you think? Wait a minute. Shouldn't he? If he knows more about the Quran than the guy who knows Sharia? No, the guy who knows Sharia better, because there's nothing in there telling you what invalidates prayer. Oh, you can have fart anytime you want. Yeah. No, you have to wash just so. And if you don't do it just so, you got to have the guy who knows Sharia to tell the guy who knows the Quran what's right and what's wrong.
You know something? This just brought to mind, they really haven't found an intact Quran until the 20th century. And that's probably why it was not important to not know the Quran.
And this is part of the issue. I mean, you can say all this, but it makes me laugh to think that this is the fact that they would say Sharia is more important than their quote book. It's not a holy book. It's a generous Quran. Their scriptures. The law, the Sharia this is what it says right here. It is, I mean, it's right there. It's in black and white there. The most learned of the sacred law has the preference to lead the mosque, basically, to lead the prayers. Now, here's the other thing that I learned from talking with Usama, because we sat there kind of discussing what is the meaning of imam. It's the person who stands in front of the followers. Okay, so it's not necessarily, imam doesn't necessarily mean leader. It's the person who stands in front of the others. And if you look up on the very top, I know it's kind of small to read from the screen for those of us who are on StreamYard, it says the imamate. And that's where this is coming from. I'm sitting here laughing because I was trying to figure out, is that really what it says? And he said, yes. I was like, okay, this just is weird. An imam is just someone who stands in front of others. There's nothing here saying he's a great leader. There's nothing here saying that he has a lot of authority except for leading prayer. So can you have a mosque where the imam is not the leader? That should be something we should all be thinking about, because he doesn't know the Quran. Here's the other part of this. If you don't have to, again, number 1 said the most learned in sacred law, and it gave the exception. If you haven't memorized, the only thing you had to have memorized was Fatiha. What happens if the one who's leading the mosque can't read Arabic, so he never learns any of what's in the Quran, any of the meaning, and all he knows is how to repeat that one chapter, again, which isn't part of the Quran according to Islamic scholars. I mean, this is where Osama and I sat there laughing. Number 1 and number 2.
Yeah.
We talked with an imam in Ohio who really didn't know the Quran. Maybe he knew section F. Or we're trying to figure out, he didn't know Arabic. He knew what he was told about the Quran. But really, this guy's leading. He's telling me I can't know anything about Islam unless I know Arabic. And Usama still comes over and starts speaking to him in Arabic, and he doesn't know the answers. He couldn't know how to answer because he didn't know Arabic. And this is the guy that's leading the mosque. And yeah.
Oh my
because
God.
Sharia is the qualification. We're going to get into the difference in when we get towards the end. What is the real difference here between what a pastor is required or a bishop? We're going to play on. We're going to take a look at First Timothy. I think it's First Timothy. I'll go back and look at it in a minute. But we're going to look at what does Christian scriptures say about what are the qualifications? We're only on 2. Can you read number 3, Sharon?
Sure. The most God-fearing, because leading to prayer is an embassage between a servant and Allah Most High, and best befits him, most honored by Allah.
Okay, Darcy, can you read 4 through 9?
Sure. Number 4, he who has been a Muslim the longest. And 5, the noblest in lineage.
So noblest. Oh, my dad was Muhammad. So was my dad. My dad. Really? But you're all named Muhammad. Yeah. Oh my gosh.
Yeah, number 6, he with the best life history or reputation. 7, the cleanest in person and clothes. Do they have a laundromat over there to make sure?
Oh my gosh. Yes, you're catching it. Okay. 8 and 9. Read those and we could have a good laugh in a minute.
He with the best voice, which means the loudest probably. And 9, the most handsome. Ooh.
So do the ladies get to pick him? And if the guys are picking him because he's handsome, what are we thinking about these guys? Are they? I'm sorry.
Oh, but the women are not supposed to look at the man unless they become overcome with lust or something.
Yeah. So
they have to be modest.
Okay. What about these 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6? What about these 6 qualifications? Says he knows anything. Let's see. He's been a Muslim the longest. Well, maybe he should know more. But you're going to meet people I'm just going to pick on people in a church. I have met people that have been in churches for decades, and they really know very, very little sometimes. Again, that's all dependent on the individual, what you know. Maybe you don't ask questions because Islam teaches you not to ask questions, which would make you probably the best Muslim. Okay. Noblest. Okay. My daddy was. I can claim my inheritance from. Now this is the truth. Muslims will discriminate against those who do not have Arabic backgrounds. I say Arabic. I'm talking about Middle Eastern. If you don't speak Arabic, they kind of put you down. I mean, a guy's talking to me and telling me if I don't know Arabic, I mean, that's the example. And the guy who's speaking to me doesn't know Arabic. Well, if I had spoke Arabic, would he be putting me down? No, I think he'd be hiding. That's what he was doing when Usama came over and talked to him. I thought it was funny. All right. That one's going to make me laugh for a long time. The noblest in lineage. Oh, well, you're related to Abu Bakr. Or you're related to Uthman. Yeah. Prove it. Best life history or reputation. I get those 2 things I think are important. Your reputation. And within the Christianity, I would say that's actually important. You don't want the guy who has the reputation of being the rapist or the guy that has the reputation of being the child molester. Oh, wait, no, I'm sorry. That's acceptable in Islam. Okay, so what am I talking about? Well, you have a prophet over. Well, actually, he's not a prophet. He's a messenger if you read the Quran. You have a messenger, and he is having a relationship with a little girl. Again, you'll find this unfortunately happening around the world because they're allowed to marry children. And what kind of reputation does that guy have? Kind of gross, if you ask me. Now here's another part that makes me think. It says the cleanest in person. So he takes a shower every day. Thank you, God, he takes a shower every day. But does he wash his clothes? There's 2 qualifications here. You can clean yourself every day, but if you don't wash your clothes, you're done. The other guy's getting the better job. Maybe like Darcy said, maybe they don't have a washing machine. I don't know.
Oh, and they gotta have bleach too, you know.
Oh yes, because of the white for the imam. Yes, that's correct.
Hey, my question is, do they wash their clothes in the cleanest dirt? You know how they wash themselves?
Oh, yeah, because they got to wash that woman off of them. Don't forget that with that clean dirt. All right. The best voice. I will say there are some, and these are only men that can be picked. There are some incredible voices out there. You sit, and I'm talking about people who do radio, and you'll hear their voice, and it resonates. You'll feel like you could go someplace, and some voices will just attract you. I mean, I get that point, but is that really a qualifying point? I mean, if you want to do radio, you want to get hired for something like that. Yeah, I get that. Where your face isn't supposed to be pretty or anything. But this is a guy who's standing up in front of everybody, and the quality of his voice really matters. And then the point that really scares me, the most handsome. So the pretty guy, the most beautiful of all the guys, is the guy that gets picked who knows Sharia. Okay, he has a good reputation. We're going with that, and it's still scary about what they think is a good reputation. He likes little girls. He's okay with jihad. He doesn't know anything but Al-Fatiha. And he doesn't have to know it in his own language. He just has to know how to repeat it in Arabic. Now, the part that got me, if you look on the right, and this is, you notice number 1 is there. The qualification number 2, it says he who has memorized the most Quran. That's missing. It's not there. Knowing the Quran, memorizing the Quran is not important in order to become the Imam. They want us to think it's important, but it's truly not important to be an Imam. That should be freaking us out, because it explains some of the stupidity we keep encountering. We get people who call themselves Muslims and they've never read the Quran. They call themselves Muslims and they've never read the Hadiths. This should bother us. It should
bothers
just bother
me.
us.
It really bothers me because when I bring up their own sources written, they don't know it.
And it's really, really hard. I mean, the truth is, it's really hard to have a conversation about what somebody believes when they're so clueless about what they believe. I mean, I'll say this. My pastor has been doing this service. He calls it, this class, he calls it ABC, all about Christianity. And it goes on for a few months. And after you take this class for a few months, then you can join the church. The idea is that you become grounded in what the church believes. I like this. I mean, so you teach, you sit there, you go through the scriptures, this is why we believe this. This is why we believe that. These are what we consider essential doctrines. All right. And that to me is extremely important. I went through the class myself and I was like, wow, if every church did this, can you imagine every church who has people who they want to be members, where they would not just walk up in front and say, okay, I'm a Christian. I qualify to be a member. If you actually know all that stuff, you go through it. I just have to say that is impressive. I want to point out over here in the blue, none of these preferences, I'm going to say it one more time, requires knowledge or understanding of what is in the Quran. So, can you be ignorant of the Quran? Absolutely. The only thing you have to know is how to repeat the Al-Fatiha in Arabic. That is scary. I mean, I don't know. I mean, I can't grasp how they can accept that, but that's what they're saying. All right, let's go on. And here we go. Okay, going on. Let's see here. Is that you, Red? Are you here? All right.
Yes, I am here.
Okay. All right. Would you like to read the first two paragraphs there, please?
On the left or the right side?
On the left. On the left.
On the left. When one of the above is present, he is chosen. If all the people present on some of them possesses one or more of these characteristics, then someone from the first of the list takes priority over those listed after him. If two are equal, and each insists on being the Imam, they draw lots. And it is permissible for a less qualified person to lead, even when it is permissible or a less qualified even when a better qualified one is present.
Are you surprised?
Yeah.
Keep going. Go on, because this is kind of the insanity of it. It just
The Imam assigned to a mosque or a person living in the house where the prayer takes place, even if only renting, takes precedence over everyone in the list, from the most learned on down. Though, so all you gotta do is just rent the house or rent the building or own the building or just kind of live there. Interesting.
Well, yeah, if you own the place, you can kick everybody out. That's what it sounds like.
Though he may select anyone else he wishes to lead the prayer, the Sultan and those under him of Islamic judges, regional governors, and so on take precedence over even the Imam of the mosque, the household, and others. Oh, well, the Sultan could come in and kick you out.
So we can stop there for a minute. So let's think about this. You don't have to be the most qualified to get the job. You can be the least qualified. I mean...
So the Imam from Houston wasn't lying when he said he was an Imam, because he was renting out the office space for his mosque. Interesting.
Yes. So he gets to choose who gets to be the Imam of his mosque. He chose himself. And he's the most qualified because he owns the place. Wait a minute. The question here is, who has the authority? The guy who runs the place or the guy who lives there? So that's the requirement. The first requirement actually is you got to know the guy who's living in the spot if there's a residence in the mosque. Now, that's something we should all be thinking about. How many mosques have people that live in them? This is something to think about. If you are aware of the 9/11 mosque that they had planned, I have one of the politicians that is local to me was very aware of those plans. In those plans, there were bedrooms and enough bathrooms and living space. And it concerned a lot of people. What were they planning? I mean, this was housing. It wasn't just a mosque. It was a place for people to live. Or were they planning a place for jihadis to live? I mean, this is an honest question. Not saying that that's what the intent was, but it should make you think. I mean, come on. What is the intent? And how do you? So those 5 guys. Let's say there's 5 guys that live in this mosque. Those 5 guys get to choose who is the leader, and one of them could be the leader. Do you get to? Churches in general, the pastor or preacher does not live in the physical building called the church. They have, some people use the term rectory or parsonage. They have a place to live that's separate, usually separate from the building of the church. It says something to me that is a qualification for it. It's just like, how low can you lower the bar? I mean, now we know why the bar is so low for some individuals who consider themselves leaders of this faith structure. All right, I want to read this last piece here. The following takes precedence, even when the latter is more learned in sacred law. 1, a non-traveler over a traveler. So the person who doesn't move from place to place should not be considered as much as the guy. I mean, the person who stays put should be considered over the guy that moves. That kind of makes sense. An upright person over a corrupt one. Well, if we're talking about sexual promiscuity, is that allowed in Islam? Well, okay, so that's not going to make any difference. We're talking about pedophiles. Well, I guess that's allowed in Islam, so that's not going to make any difference. We're talking about lying. Oh, that's not going to make any difference. We're talking about stealing. That's not going to make any difference. We're talking about the guy that doesn't pay his debt. Well, you're allowed not to go to the mosque if you don't pay your debts. So what are they talking about? Most upright. We're talking about the guy who shows up to the mosque on a regular basis and prays. That's it. That's the only qualification I see there for upright. And an adult over a child. Okay, you don't want a child leading you. I get that. And then there's a sighted and a blind person are equally eligible to lead the prayer. Take a look at this on the right, number 4. This is in the Arabic. Even if the other one was better in understanding and knowledge, if you were a slave and memorized the Quran, a free man who knows nothing about the Quran is more qualified. So a slave who is more intelligent and knows more than you has no rights compared to the free. I kind of get that. But to say the person who is smarter but has a lower rank than you can't qualify, that's really what they're saying. Here's another thing to think about. So they're enslaving Muslims. And becoming Muslim when you're a slave doesn't set you free. Another thing to think about. And John Wilson, you are 100% right. That's, I live in New York State. And let me just say that there isn't a patriot in this state that wasn't aware of and fighting. And that's why it didn't happen. So, yes.
It's just blatantly disrespectful.
And have they put a mosque in New York City in the area? The answer is yes. Because we have libs in New York City, running New York City, and they don't want you to know that.
I don't think they care about respect.
That's right.
It's a symbol of conquest.
Yes, it's exactly it. It's exactly it. All right, Sharon, we're going back to you. Can you read 12.26?
Sure. It is offensive for someone to lead a group at prayer when most of the group dislike him for a reason recognized by Sharia or sacred law, such as wrongdoing, not taking precautions against filth, najasa, having a blameworthy income, keeping the company of oppressors or the immoral, and so forth. If a minority dislike him, it is not offensive, for nobody lacks someone who dislikes him.
I'll agree with that one. No, there's always somebody out there that doesn't like you. That's okay. All right, so let's think about this one. It's offensive for someone to lead a group at a prayer when most of the groups basically think he's an idiot. They dislike him for some reason, but it's a reason under Sharia. So he farts too much. He has gas pains. His memory is like Biden's. Can you tell me where I was, what I'm doing? No, where am I? Well, that's not going to work for somebody doing prayer. Yeah, that would cause a problem. I mean, I've actually seen a church where the people within the church body were not allowed to pick the pastor. The pastor was sent to them by what I would call a governing board, like the bishop. They assigned that pastor to that church, and they didn't like him. Well, the numbers went down, and I kind of agreed with their reason for not liking him. And let's just say he moved on. It's, yeah, I kind of get this part, but at the same time, here's the part I find interesting. O is, in truthfulness, a note, such as wrongdoing, taking precautions against najasa. Okay, not putting filth on your, I mean, it's filth. What about the guy who has not cleaned his woman off him? He hasn't cleaned himself off, cleaned the woman off himself.
Hey, we run a family show here, people. You know,
well,
I mean,
he just touched the woman, not anything else.
Oh,
That's it. That's all we're talking about.
Yeah, just shook her hand. Yeah,
he just shook her hand. He's got to go get that good dirt.
Yeah, get that clean dirt, because women are dirtier than dirt.
Yeah, yeah. So, Darcy, can you read F12.27?
Yeah. It is not permissible or valid to follow an imam who is non-Muslim, insane, in a state of ritual impurity, or who has filth on his clothing or person, or as a woman. Ooh, that disqualifies me, darn it. A woman leading men, or someone who omits or mispronounces a letter of the Fatiha, leading someone who knows it, or in mute, or someone who slurs the words so the letters are indistinct from one another, or someone with a lisp. Sorry. If after the prayer one finds out that the imam was one of the above, then one must make up the prayer, unless the imam had filth upon him that was concealed, or he was in a state of ritual impurity, in which case one does not need make it up.
Okay, so the imam farted, and the stench and he never got up and went. And everybody knows that he's the one who farted. So yeah, it's their duty not to follow him from that point. And if he didn't go clean himself up, Really? Yeah. Can you imagine everybody having to wait? Come, we'll start over again. Oh my gosh. The funny thing here, we have two women here who know more about Sharia than I would be willing to bet. If I'm just going to pick all the Muslims in New York State, I'd be willing to bet the women here know more about this prayer in Islamic law than 99.99% of all Muslims in the state of New York. Whoa. So are they more qualified? Well, what we just read is they're women, so they can't do it.
Yeah, but thank you for the vote of confidence.
I mean, they set the bar. You know more about Sharia, you know more about the Quran, and yet that would be fun. I mean, when Connie's with us, you sit there and it's the same thing. They have a problem with women leading. I mean, I'm not someone who's a fan of women pastors. I'm not. I'll just put it out there. I'm not. But I am a fan of women leading when there's a chance for them to lead or share something. That's a little different. This Wednesday, one of our elders' wives shared, and it was an incredible lesson about. It was an incredible lesson, and I just want to say that it was just so important. The way she shared, she talked about what is the word Christ mean? What is, and it means Messiah. And talking about that, it was very, very important. I explained to her a little bit about talking to people about Islam. In our community, some people actually have a discussion about whether we should use the word Messiah or the word Christ when you're talking to Muslims. You don't think about that much, but it's on my mind sometimes now. How do I say this or that? Trying to think about what's the best way to reach a Muslim for Christ, and you think about those things, and that's because we're talking about translation and other things, which words are better to use. What does it say though? If we can have these discussions and they can't, that to me is the other part of this. You cannot ask. Larry's asking if we're talking about yes, we were talking about passing gas again. Sorry. What does it say when what does it say when they disqualify people because they're a lower station, and we're talking about slaves. They disqualify people because they're female. I can go on and on about the reasons people get disqualified, but the one who's the most qualified is the guy who reads the book that we're reading. Does it mean they actually know anything about what they believe? No. This is the only way they know how to pray. What's in this book? That to me is the mind number. It says everything you want to know about Islam to me. If there is nothing in here about how to pray, nothing in their scriptures, where'd they get the idea? And my big kick this past week has been the Quran says you only have to pray 3 times. Well, the Quran says 3 times, and the Hadith say 5 times. So is the Quran wrong? Sharia says it's 5 times. And we've heard about the unimportant, the supererogatory prayer, the unnecessary prayer. Whoa. Yeah, something to think about. Rad, can you read the part on the right there?
Sure. It is not correct that you can follow an infidel or a crazy or the one who passes wind or the one with any uncleanliness of the one who is led by an androgynous one
So
who
it was supposed to be
led
led by. I'm sorry, that's my bad handwriting. Led by an androgynous, yeah, person who has
or
both
a
sexes.
woman, okay, or a woman, nor a one who memorizes al-Fatiha, or a one who cannot. So if the Imam is one of these, you must repeat the prayer.
You notice they didn't say any of that? See, that's what's there. Like, so you can't follow an infidel. So we're all out. You notice they didn't put it
Oh
there.
man, I can't be
They
an
did say.
Imam.
Oh wait, it does say to follow an imam who is you can't. It's not permissible to follow a non-Muslim. Okay, I
Oh man,
can
I
get
still
that.
wanted to be an Imam. I still wanted to be an Imam too.
All right, the one
You
who
know,
passes wind.
they are actually missing one very important point. Someone who actually knows Arabic. So I
Yes.
vote Usama.
Well, he again non-Muslim, so he gets disqualified. I mean, that was a part we were laughing about until we got to this point. If you skipped over F12.27, so I read 12.25, I read 12.26, and if I skipped over F12.27, you could have us non-Muslims as imams. Whoa. Hey, we start telling you who the Messiah is. What does this Messiah mean? Yeah, you can come pray, but I'm going to take that opportunity to teach you who the Messiah is. Oh ho! Yeah. You know what killed me? I mean, I sat here like, he's translating this. I'm like, wait, that's not there in the English. It does not say. I mean, the passing of the wind, okay, that would be the just, the guy who, again, they're trying to clean things up. They always seem to hide the fart stuff. I don't know why they want to hide it all the time, but they do. And then they talk about the androgynous person, the actual person who is born with both sexes. Interior, there's usually it's very, very rare there's a second connection. You usually have the organs of a female or a male. You don't have both. And what I mean by that is you may have the outside appearance if you're androgynous, but it's extremely rare that you would have both. And I don't know how you could physically do that, but that's the reality. Is it a birth defect? Absolutely. So think about this. They're not going to trust a woman who, and then the person who memorizes one of the, I'm sorry, let's leave this last part here. Nor a one who memorizes the Fatiha, or one who cannot. So if the Imam is one of these, you must repeat the prayer. This is just, yeah, something to think about. Going on. Okay, Sharon, can you start with number 1 there? The group prayer is valid
when the imam is performing a supererogatory prayer and the follower is performing a prescribed prayer, or vice versa.
So I had Usama look at this, and he's like, this Arabic is so bad it doesn't make sense. Like, I mean, I get it. It's archaic. I looked at how can they have that little bit of Arabic and all this English, but pay attention here. So when you look at underneath 4, all that stuff is added. It's notes. You see all this stuff in number 2 it's the stuff in parentheses, the stuff for A, that's all made up stuff that's added. All right. And the word supererogatory, it means unnecessary. So when the Imam is performing an unnecessary prayer and the follower is performing a prescribed prayer. So how is the follower performing a prescribed prayer if the Imam, the leader, is performing something unnecessary? Maybe he has to make up a prayer. I don't know.
It doesn't make sense to me.
Yeah. Can you read number 2 also, Sharon?
Sure. When the imam is performing the noon prayer, zuhr, and the follower is praying the dawn prayer, sub. I don't know how to
I'm not going to try to pronounce that, to be honest.
i.e., when the type of prayer differs, or vice versa.
So the group prayer is valid if the Imam is performing the noon prayer and the follower is performing the dawn prayer. Really, you're doing two opposite things, and one requires you do this amount of bowing, the other one requires you do this amount of rakas. Like, so you can't be following. And it says in there, your prayer is invalid if you don't. So this is actually Sharia contradicting itself, because we've read it over and over again. Well, if you don't do the amount of rakas, you don't repeat and follow at this point, you say things at an incorrect point, you do things that your prayer gets invalidated, but your group prayer is valid. Wait, your prayer was invalidated, but the fact you were there for this is really confusing. I mean, if you know Sharia, you know this part, and you know Sharia is contradicting Sharia. So this is just, I guess Allah's the God of exceptions. Your prayer is good, even though it was wrong. Wow. Darcy, can you read 3 and 4?
Sure. When the Imam is praying while sitting, and the follower is praying while standing, or vice versa. And when the Imam is performing a make-up prayer, and the follower performing a current one, or vice versa.
I mean, haven't we, again, we were just talking about this. If you don't perform things like the leader is doing, we have just read this in one of the last sessions. If you're not on key, you're not on point, your prayer is invalidated. But here it's saying your prayer is valid. This is confusing. I mean, you're not supposed to be doing something different, is what we've been reading. And yet here it says that you can. Sharia contradicting Sharia.
Which is precisely why Muslims are told, don't question. You don't read, you just memorize and repeat.
Rinse and repeat. Yeah. Rad, I'm going to give you the next page. So here we go. This piece here, it says, but a person shortening his prayer because of travel may not pray behind him. Again, this is notes, so I'm going to skip this one. We're going to go on. All right. Rad, can you read F12.29, please?
It is valid for a Shafi to follow the leadership of an Imam who follows a different school of jurisprudence, whether the follower is not certain that the Imam has omitted an obligatory element of the prayer. Though if certain the Imam has omitted one, it is not valid to follow him. The validity is based solely on the belief of the follower as to whether or not something obligatory has been omitted.
So stop right there.
This Islam is complicated, dude. I'm telling you, man. So now you gotta pay attention. Yeah, to your mom.
Wait a minute. It just said that you didn't have to pay attention, didn't it? But you could be doing a different prayer.
But what if you happen to notice it? Then you're screwed. You know what I mean? Then you gotta, see, the whole thing is you gotta be blissfully ignorant of everything in Islam to make sure that you don't violate anything.
Exactly.
You know what I mean?
And that's actually one of the things it said. If you don't know this, okay, your prayer is good.
Well, actually says that. Is it a hadith or is it in the Quran where it says?
It's in the Sharia. You're talking about 5101. Don't ask any questions.
Don't ask any questions. Yeah, don't. If you don't want the answer, don't ask the question, or something like that, right? Yeah.
No, it's just don't ask questions.
Do not trouble yourselves, O believer, by asking questions that you do not know the answer to. Because if you did know the answer, it would cause you to sin. So don't ask, don't tell, I guess.
It's sad. It's sad. I mean, just
what a goofy religion.
Cognitively, I mean, understand brain, when you Your brain is not supposed to be able to hold conflicting beliefs. However, Islam teaches you to say yes and say no at the same time. You're not supposed to be able to hold on to both. It's not supposed to be possible. But this is an example of that. It's problematic. It invalidates Islam as a whole when you have these contradictions, being told that they must both be true. I think this is the reason for the invention of abrogation. They have to get rid of one that's not. And this is the thing. Sharia can abrogate the Qur'an. It can abrogate the Hadith, as we've seen. And Sharia can abrogate Sharia. There's a discussion I had with Lloyd De Jong about this, and I think he's 100% right. If we can get people with this, with Sharia, by just asking these questions and thinking about things out loud, maybe we can lead a couple to Christ. I mean, this is just, wow. Rad, I'm going to have you finish this page, but I want you to skip down to 12.30.
All right, 12:30. It is offensive to take an immoral person. Definition of immoral is in O24.3. An imam, because he might not be concerned. What if he's immoral? He might not be concerned about the things that are obligatory in the prayer, or someone who stutters over the letters F or the letter T. It actually puts out the actual letter. Wow. Because that's important. Yeah. Or who makes inconsequential mistakes in the Arabic Arabic vowel that do not change the meaning. Wow.
I mean, okay. So they're
That's
telling
important.
you, if you don't know Arabic and you're saying it wrong, it's offensive. Did they say, notice they said it's offensive. Did they say the prayer was invalidated? They didn't, which is kind of like, okay, so nobody knows what you're saying. You think you know what you're saying. Everybody believes you're saying the right thing. So it's okay. Now think about, we're going to that first part. It's offensive to take an immoral person. So the immoral person, so pedophilia is not immoral. All right. Killing a non-Muslim is not immoral. Killing your child who left Islam, that's not immoral either. You start to wonder. Lying to everybody you meet because it's okay under Islam, because you serve the chief of all deceivers, not immoral. You have to start there wondering what is immoral. I mean, they have it defined. F24.3a. You know what? I'm going to see it. They said what? O24? Let me see if I can pull it up, because I did not catch that one. And let me see if I can pull it up real quick. O24.
While
And
you're doing that, can I ask you a question? I mean,
sure.
It says here, the man cannot, blah, blah. You cannot be a man who is a man who committed adultery. But, I mean, they got what they say they don't, but they got what they call prostitution, but they just call it muta, temporary marriage. I mean, isn't that all he has to say?
Well, it gets worse, because they can have sex slaves, and they're allowed to force their sex slaves to enter, to become prostitutes. They're allowed to force it, because Allah won't, call them blameworthy. And this is just something to think about. All right. We said F24. All right, I'm going to pull this over. And I'll just make this a little bit bigger. Okay, let's. Okay, everybody can see that?
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm good.
Okay. All right. So I think it was F24. I'm just going to pull this down for just a second. Just want to make sure. At 024.3, right?
You just deleted it
020
off the screen. Okay.
Okay, 024.3. Okay, that's 024.2. And we're going down 024.3. And this is about, and I find this humorous, has committed an enormity, meaning something severely threatened against in an unequivocal text from the Quran or Hadith. Though if someone who commits such an act then repents and is felt to be sincere, he regains his legal uprightness. So he said, forgive me. He at least made somebody think he meant it, and now he's sinless. He didn't ask God for forgiveness. He gets away with it. I mean, these are things that we should be asking what's really going on here. Okay, let's keep going. We're on this section. Has anybody found out what he's done wrong? He regains his legal uprightness. He's tested. Okay. Provided he is tested after his repentance long enough to believe in its genuineness. So they're going to observe him and see if he's being a good guy long enough. Okay, I kind of get that. There's a purpose in this making, they're talking about restoration. All right. Number 2, persists in a lesser sin. And the note here is because it then becomes a sin, enormity. We're just say sin, as opposed to when one does not persist in it. A lesser sin is one that has not been severely threatened against in an unequivocal text. So he farted, but he didn't fart very loud. Or, I mean, so he had nastiness on his clothing. I mean, I'll leave that for he had some uncleanliness on his clothing. But didn't the guy who went to the mosque ask his child bride to pick off the semen from his robes, and he still went? Oh, yeah. That's just disgusting. But that's okay for him. We're still trying to find out what they consider immoral. Is without respectability, such as a street sweeper. So the guy who has a job street sweeping is immoral? Or he has a job working at a bathhouse? That's immoral? It's a job.
Wait, street sweeper. Well, that would be a very dirty job back in the day. I'm just saying, because you got all the animal crap, and actually, people would actually crap on the side of the street as well. Just like they do in Los Angeles and San Francisco today. But how would that make them immoral? I mean, it would be a very dirty job.
But they're doing something that's actually needed.
Exactly. Yeah, exactly. So, I mean, unless because that would probably be slave work or kafir infidel work. So, you know what I mean?
So,
That's
and
what
get down to the bottom.
That's
I
what
was
I'm
just
thinking.
going to say that.
I-
Because non-Muslims are ordered to do that.
Yeah, that's what I heard too. Or slaves.
So go down here to this. See where it says A down the bottom here. A legally corrupt or immoral person is someone guilty of one or two, but they didn't define what that means. I mean, really, their idea is someone who persists in a lesser sin. I mean, how do you define? I mean, under the difference between Christianity and Islam is so vast. I mean, sin is sin in Christianity. You commit a sin. There's no difference in, I mean, a sin is a sin, period. And in their belief structure, there's lesser ones and there's higher ones. Okay. But they don't tell us what makes one a lesser. They didn't there. And they were trying to tell us they did. Wow. So take a look at F12.30. And this is what's in Arabic. You cannot be a man who is a man who commits adultery. We have a problem here, Houston. We have a guy who they call a prophet who had permission to have sex with any woman who wanted to have sex with him, even if they were married. So the messenger of Islam, Qatham or Muhammad, the titled Muhammad, if he's allowed to commit adultery, it's not adultery if you have sex with a non-Muslim and you rape her, because that's part of jihad. Whoa. You can have sex with your sex slave. That would be not going to be considered rape. That would not be considered adultery.
They have actually rewritten the meaning of adultery here.
Yes. This is their concept of what is adultery. You have to stop and think. Well, what would be adultery? So you have how many wives? Start thinking about this. They all want to be like their prophet. Again, he's not called a prophet in the Quran. He's called a messenger. He had more than 4 wives. It's okay for him. So when does the concept of adultery get applied? When the wife gets upset? Wait a minute, she's subservient to the guy, so she can't, and she has no say if he wants to marry with more than one wife. Wow.
Would it be up to, say, the Imam if he gets pissed off and says it's adultery? Because, a couple years ago, I just remember this one guy in some part of Africa, and he was being stoned for adultery. And
yes.
But I was not clear of what he did. You remember that article? I can see the picture.
So there's a lot of articles where it's like there was an article earlier, I would say last year, where it was either India or Pakistan. A teenage boy and a teenage girl were having a little bit too much time together. And they set fire to the place, the house that they were in, the little hiding spot, and they killed the both of them. Now, because they were not supervised, they might have been holding hands. I don't know, just having a talk. I don't know. Because they were alone together. They killed them. And they called it, they were saying they had committed adultery. But because they were alone, that was enough for that. That was what the news article stated. Because they were alone together. Now.
Okay, wait. Was he married?
These are teenagers. No, they were just teenagers. They weren't married, neither one of them. So adultery, it would be an act of what we would, as Christians, would call fornication, if they had engaged in sexual relations. However, there was nothing there saying that. And that's like you're saying, and what I'm saying, what is adultery under this belief structure? Again, there's more allowance for adultery than there is something against. There is an imam. It was in the stories this week. He was having relationships with some of his follow. I think he was leading a school, and he was having relationships with some of the girls. And did they consider it adultery? You got to sit there and wonder when do they? I think when somebody gets upset, they say stuff, but yeah, they should pull them out and railroad them. There's a whole bunch of statements you can think about, but when the leader of your faith can have sex with the married women and with the single women and with, yeah, you start reading all the allowances he has. Ugh. Now you have to ask that question. If he's allowed to do that and he's the perfect man, what does that mean? All right, let's keep going here. We're trudging ahead. Sharon, can you read 12.31, please?
Sure. When there are two or more male followers, it is sunnah for them to stand behind the imam. A single male follower stands on the imam's right, and if a second follower arrives, the newcomer stands to the imam's left and says his opening Allahu Akbar, after which the two followers move back, little by little. If they cannot move back for lack of room, then the imam moves forward.
Wait. If, okay, there's two or more guys in the room, they're standing, whether they're standing behind him or wherever, all right? To give this guy room who's leading, he can push them back towards a wall by getting closer to them. What are we talking about? The beginning of a non-consensual relationship here?
I think there's a lot
Yeah.
of stupid rules. I mean, this is getting stupid, you know?
I mean, it almost looks like the imam has permission to push these guys up against a wall, or are we seeing something else happening here? Do you understand why they want you to know Sharia instead of know the Quran? Oh, wow. Darcy, can you read 12.32, please?
Sure. When there are men, boys, and women present, the men form the front row or rows, then the boys, and then the women. This is about the rule for husband and wife. The wife prays in a separate row behind the husband. If the men's back row is incomplete, it should be completed with boys. And a latecomer may not remove the boys to make a place for himself unless they are directly behind the imam. Those who form a new row behind a row that is incomplete do not attain the merit of group prayer.
So, okay, you come in, you're and they're still forming rows, and because your row is incomplete, you no longer get the benefit of group prayer. So you're praying in the middle of the road. Wait, that invalidates prayer too. Okay, so can't pray in the middle of the road. Wait a minute, what are they doing in France? Praying in the roads? Are they doing that throughout Europe? Yeah, praying in the roads, and all of those prayers don't count. Oh boy. Yeah, you're not supposed to pray in the way, which means on the road. Okay.
It's too bad a bunch of women with dogs, walking their dogs, don't walk in front of them.
Oh,
Just saying.
make sure you bring a black dog while you're at it.
Yeah.
Yeah. I'm waiting for the non-Muslims to catch on. Start bringing, every time you see them that are deciding they're going to pray out in public, you just bring your puppy dog, little puppy, might be black, women, and just show up.
How about a picture of a black dog? Would that count?
Or you could probably fart, or you could, this sounds mean, you could probably fart and people would want to leave. Not sure who did the farting. I mean, I don't know. Did they do it? The rule of thumb is whoever smelt it first dealt it. Oh my gosh. So latecomers, yeah, this is the point. Exactly, Houston. What are the latecomers supposed to do then? Make a new row in front of the women and steal people from... Yeah, it's a good point. And this is the insanity of this. Some of these things just simply do not make sense. And this is supposed to be law. This is the best of Sharia. All about prayer and invalidating prayer. So if you're coming late, Your prayer don't count because you had to make a row and you didn't fill it. Oh, scary. Can you read that last line there, Darcy?
Sure. A woman leading women in prayer stands in the middle of their first row.
You know, I find that interesting. The leader.
I see nothing wrong with it.
Sorry?
I said I see nothing wrong with that. Being in the middle in a row, praying in a mosque.
I mean, so she's leading, and you're telling me the guy in the row above in front of her, is not going to notice? I mean, there was a part we read where guys were showing up so they could pray behind the women. And now they're saying, oh, no, the women have to stay in the back, so you can't stand and look at their butts anymore. Okay. I mean, this is Islam. I mean, it's perverted. It's just, yeah. Oh, there's another good one. I find it rather clever that it says the unbeliever should stand on the left side of the imam, left being dreadful, of course. Left behind, maybe. I mean, this stuff, I mean, we're going through it slow because it's so hard to believe. And I wish I could race through this stuff because, to be honest, sometimes it's painful to get through. Rad, can you read point 33, please?
Sure. Point 33. It is offensive. Oh, we know this is going to be good. It is offensive for the imam's place to be higher or lower than the followers, unless the imam wishes to teach the followers the actions of prayer. If the imam and followers are not in the mosque, it is obligatory that part of the imam's body be level with part of the followers when both are of average height. What do they got to do walking around with the ruler? I mean, dude, is this like an Olympic sport? I mean,
well, this is the unusual thing that you see in mosques. You go into a mosque, and there is no elevated space like in a church where a person can be seen all the way to the back of the room and be easier to follow. What's the purpose of having a leader if you can't see him lead?
exactly.
You're supposed, I mean, you can't see him because there's a ton of people in front of you.
They're trying to demonstrate that everyone is equal to everyone, but it doesn't make any sense because he's leading you. You know what I mean? But they're saying, well,
Yes.
even the leaders of our prayer are equal to us. But again, it's so it's what do you call it? Social. What do they call it? I can't think of it now. When social justice, social credit. Where
Well, I
you're
consider it's like
virtue signaling, virtue signaling.
virtue signaling. I think this is going a really strange direction. So they are saying, follow me, follow the imam, do exactly what he says, exactly on time. But now they have said, we're not going to care if you follow the imam because you have to be behind, 10, 20, 30 other people. Now, I want you to think about this. You go outside and you're praying outside. You got the imam yelling out or crying out the leading to the prayer. And no one's able to follow him except for the guys in the first few rows who can actually see him. The guys behind him are kind of guessing what he's doing by copying the people in front of them. Are they following the people in front of them, or are they following the imam? You're following the followers. And that's not something you're supposed to do. So this, again, makes things invalid. This is just, it's a mess. Darcy, can you read 34?
Sure, sorry. A latecomer to a group prayer who does not find a place in the last row should stand behind it. Begin his prayer with the opening Allahu Akbar, and then indicate to someone in the row to stand with him by drawing him back. And it is recommended that the person selected cooperate by stepping back. This is only if the latecomer does not expect anyone else to come.
So you're the last guy in there, and there's no one to be with you. So you grab the guy who was the last guy before you, and you pull him back. And wait, I mean, isn't this causing
So you distract the person that was already there before you, and they have to start over, apparently.
This is... So in a church, one of the jobs of an usher is, during prayer, ushers will put their hands on the doorknobs and not let people come in to cause distractions. This implies that distractions are allowed from the outside, where people can enter during prayer and be a distraction. Prayer is something that's supposed to be personal. Well, in Islam, there is no personal God. So it kind of makes sense, but it's kind of frustrating at the same time. You got these guys walking in. Okay, guy shows up the last few minutes. We read a ways back that if you show up last, you still get credit for everything. But we just read a few minutes ago that if you show up last and your row isn't filled, you get no credit. Now you got to start asking yourself, what? Again, we're seeing these contradictions within Sharia. Since Islam isn't, people who follow Islam aren't allowed to ask any questions, I hope they're listening. Because if Sharia is allowed to contradict Sharia, which rule do you decide to accept? This is scary stuff. It just boggles the mind. Sharon, can you read 35, please?
The follower's prayer is invalid if his heel is farther forward than the imam's. He should be farther back than the imam's heel, even if only a little, but not more than 1.44 meters, for otherwise the merit of group prayers is lost. Unrewarded, though not legally invalid.
Okay. You got to get a meter stick out and you got to measure 1.44 meters.
I think Rad's right. You got to bring a ruler.
Oh, a meter stick. You got to whack each other over the heads. Oh my gosh. So in a mosque or a place of Islamic prayer, you will have designated boxes sometimes. And this is why. The 1.44 meters rule. I don't know who came up with the idea of 1.44 meters. The humor here, whoever came up with the terminology 1.44 meters, really, were they using meters during the days of Muhammad? Were they using meters during the days of the first four caliphs? I don't believe that's even close to accurate. Where did they get the idea? No, maybe Sharia is a lot newer than we think. It's got to make you wonder. All right, let's go on. 12.36. Rad, can you read that one, please?
All right, which one?
12.36.
Okay. Whenever a imam leads a follower in a mosque, the group prayer is valid no matter if they are at a distance from each other, or no matter whether they're in the same chamber or not, as one of them is on the roof, even if the door is closed, and the other is in the mosque as well, provided that both places open onto the mosque and the follower can know when the imam is performing the motions of prayer, whether by seeing the imam or hearing his backup imam. What, I got a backup imam? Oh.
like a backup singer.
Exactly. The person repeats the Imam's Allahu Akbars and salams in a loud voice so people can hear. Multiple interconnected mosques opening unto each other are considered as one mosque, and so are the mosque's outer courtyards, even when there is a walkway between the courtyard and mosque. Okay, so this is interesting. One, well, bizarreness, but it's interesting. Whenever a mom leads followers in a mosque, the group prayer is valid. Okay, so I mean, think about this. We're told by Jesus Christ to go into a closet or whatever, or to in our sacred room or whatever, and pray in our softest voice. Now, of course, there are there are communal prayers and recitations and things like that, obviously. Okay, and singing of psalms and things like this. Um, but no, I mean, it's your prayer is valid or not valid, based on if you can hear the backup singer to the band, um, or 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 you're in a room that is connected and adjacent to another room or the courtyard. I mean, it's just this legalism. It's just so bizarre and antichrist. It really is antichrist. This is an anathema to Christ. Yes.
So here's the other thing. Pay attention to this part. I'm going to go through it. It says the group prayer is valid no matter if they are at a distance from each other and no matter whether they're in the same chamber or not. As when one of them is on the roof. Wait a minute. I'm going to go back here for just a second. Let's see. Weren't we reading about they had to be on the same height? When was the same height? We were just reading that. Yeah, right here at 12.33. If the imam and follower are not in a mosque, it is obligatory that the part of the imam's body level, are not in a mosque. So, yeah. So if you're in a mosque, you can be at a different level. But if you're not in a mosque, I guess I had read that wrong before. But in a mosque, I mean, so you can be on a second level. It's just kind of bizarre. It really is. What do you, I mean, what does this say? I mean, it's so contradictory. It just has to be making you think. All right. I'm having problems with this. I mean, these interconnected rooms. During COVID, and this is the only thing I can come to, if you wanted to see something amusing and you were looking about how people were doing prayer back then in mosques, well, they had X'd off. You can't sit next to somebody. Wow. Oh, I'm going to have some fun. I got to come back to this. You guys are having a fun discussion, Houston and John. All right. I guess that's translated from whatever cubits they used to measure to Adam's height, the 1.44. And John's like, you beat it to me. I almost mentioned cubits. All right. For Adam, they were using 18-inch cubits, so 1.44 meters would be 3.14 cubits, and it's not a simple number there either. John, you're in the same boat I am. I can't get most math. I'm barely, I'm not very good at that. I mean, I'm looking at all this. Really, does this legalism about prayer, why is it so important? It's so important that the qualification for, and this is the part that should make people think, the qualification, the biggest qualification an imam can have is to know Sharia. It's not the qualification of knowing the Quran or knowing the Hadiths or, what's that guy's name? The guy who was pretend slashed. Yeah. He's an imam because he knows Sharia, or is he a
Ibn Fibbin, the adulterer?
Yeah, the guy who had, the adulterer. So again, an adulterer. He had sex with another man's wife.
No, he married another man's wife while she was still married to him. So he's
yes.
And the dude actually gave him his wife's number because he was having marital problems, and your mom was going to fix it for him. And yeah, he fixed it good, all right. I'm just saying.
Yeah, I've seen enough on that. Like, okay, so according to this, what we've read today, if we accept, we can go back, poor Ibn Fibbin. I don't think Ibn Fibbin qualifies as having, we can play on that. All right. We can go back here. Ibn Fibbin, 12.30, you can't lead. It says that in Arabic. Yeah. Ibn Fibbin, that's what they should be capitalizing in. F12.30. It's what it says in Arabic. Oh, Ibn Fibbin, goodbye. Yeah. Too bad for you.
Yeah, we'll see you later, ketchup man.
I mean, this is the insanity of this. So Ibn Fibbin's out, and we're going on. Okay, let's talk about what the Bible actually requires. And this is where I think we have to think about things. What is the truth about stuff? My concern here is if we're going to talk about the reality, 1 Timothy 3, what makes us different? I think that's actually extremely important here. Why is Christianity standing out as different? And this is, I say, extremely important. And I'm just going to pull this over. So 1 Timothy 3:1, it says, this is a true meaning. If a man desire the office of bishop, he desires a good work. If a bishop then must be blameless, the husband of one wife. Now we really know what adultery means here. Vigilant, sober, of good behavior. So he has to have a good reputation. He has to be known. I mean, he can't be out there drinking every night. Well, the Muslims aren't supposed to be out there drinking, so I'll give them that. They're not supposed to. Given to hospitality, apt to teach. Okay. Not given to wine, nor striker, nor greed of filthy money. But patience, not a brawler. He's not out there fighting every night. And he's not desirous of things that belong to others. That's what covetousness. One that rules well his own house, having his children in subjection with all gravity. So his children should be well behaved. So we're looking at how this man lives. That's the big thing we're looking at. All right. How does he live? Those are things you can see. If a man doesn't know how to rule his own house, how shall he take care of the church and God? Not a newbie. Wait a minute. When we read Sharia, was a newbie allowed to lead? Think about that. The newbie was allowed to lead, but if he has more qualifications, he has a better voice. Oh, he's cleaner than the guy who's been there longer, so he can lead. Oh, wait. He rents the place, or he owns the place, so he's allowed to lead. Oh, yeah. Okay. No, doesn't work under Christianity. And notice this part. Not a novice, lest being lifted up with pride, he fall into the condemnation of the devil. There's a purpose for newbies, new Christians, to be staying, waiting. They need to grow. And it says, moreover, he must have a good report of them which are without, lest he fall into reproach and the snare of the devil. Likewise, must the deacons be grave, not double-tongued, not given to much wine, not greedy of filthy money, holding the mystery of the faith in a pure conscience. This is one of the things you got to think about. You have to be faithful. The mystery of the faith. I like that terminology because it's kind of hard to explain the word Trinity, and it doesn't exactly. Not everything we believe is. I mean, it's pretty logical, but sometimes faith is the evidence of things not seen. That's my best way to put it. You can have faith, and sometimes you just have faith. You know you're supposed to have faith, and miracles happen. That's my best way to put it. All right. Going on. Verse 10. And let these also first be proven. Then let them use the office of a deacon, being found blameless. So they're not going to have things against them. 1 Timothy 3:11. Even so must their wives be grave, not slanderers, sober, faithful in all things. So this is something to think about. You're married, you're only allowed one wife. Your wife can't be out there cussing. She can't be out there saying nasty things. She's got to be sober. Okay. She's got to be faithful in all things. And this is one of the reasons why believers, Christians, disciples of Christ, need to look for that Proverbs 31 woman. It's a tough, tough thing to find. Let's keep going. Wait a minute. Is this the qualification for the guy? Part of his qualification is the woman he chose. Think about that. Let the deacons be the husbands of one wife, ruling their children and their households well. For they that have used the office of a deacon well purchase to themselves a good degree and a great boldness in the faith which is in Christ Jesus. These things I write unto you, hoping to come unto you shortly, but if it tarry long. I mean, think about these things. These are qualifications for service. Reputation and the faith is mentioned in here. Examples. What I find of interest here that's problematic, we look at today's world and we say, you go to a local church and you'll see they want your pastor to have certain things. What do we want your pastor to have? We want him to make sure he knows the Word of God. We want to make sure he's daily reading it. One of the things the church is supposed to do is to pray for your leaders. So we pray that they keep God first. We pray that they keep their family second. And we pray that their church, the stuff that they do for the church, is last. And if you're following section F that we've been reading, that's not there. There's no component about putting God first. They said, like they're talking about immoral. They're not talking about putting Allah first either. So Allah could be last on their mind. There was nothing there about them not being greedy, really. Well, I get to collect money. If you actually read the Quran, you'll see most of the times they pray, they collect money. Should be start ringing some bells. What are they doing? These are things to be concerned about. Not happening in the church. It's not comparable. And this should be something to think about. And I'm going to end up, I think I'm going to leave it. I'm going to do this last one. I'm going to stop here and I'll go back and change the beginning. I think it's important that we think about what are the qualifications for the jobs we have? What are the qualifications for the simple things like and what we're talking about today? I think about how simple things should be. Sometimes simple is best. If you have someone who's supposed to be leading you in a job, if they don't know the job, but they know the rules about the job, are they really going to be able to do their best? The guy who's supposed to be the leader of your prayer group, he knows there's a Bible. He's heard about it. He's read some rules about Christianity. We don't have laws to tell us how to live. We have faith, and that's supposed to, so it's not going to work with us. There's just, Yeah, this is the other point. The excuses to miss group prayer, owing money, smelling good food, those can't be used by the imam, or would they just pick someone else if he's a no-show? Oh, well said, Houston. Yep, you're not going to find these things for churches. The guy who leads group prayer, who owes money to someone, is allowed not to show up. What if it's the imam? Okay, he owes money to someone and he doesn't show up. Yeah, that it does say that. I mean, we've read about how they can pick an imam to a guy to lead group prayer because the imam can't do that, or he's indisposed. He's having a gassy day. Yeah, it's
Can't be eating those Mexican burritos, man. I'm telling you, knock you out.
well, okay. So he grabs some Mexican burritos on his way because the food smelled good on the way. He's a little bit late. He goes through and he's done all the voodoo thing, and he gets up there, and I don't even want to get into that. Yeah.
Man. And it's taken the shahada to a whole new level. I'll tell you what, man. But now the whole thing, man, is just. I mean, when you look at this is total antithetical. This is totally antichrist. Okay, I mean, it really
it is. It stands
whole
against
religion.
everything that Christianity stands for. I mean, all these rules, and the thing that bothers me the most, and when we keep reading section F, invalidate prayer, invalidate prayer, invalidate prayer. Your prayers are invalidated. The amount of things that go into invalidating prayer. Really?
I know, right? What? No, that's the thing. I mean, they don't. I mean, forget about if they have salvation or knowing that they have the security of salvation. They don't even know if their prayers are going to be valid or not, based on, I mean, all these little things. I mean, dude, someone farts in the mosque. Oh my God. You guys got to do the whole yoga thing all over again. I mean, seriously. Well, if nobody says anything about it, or you know what I'm saying? It's all this deceit. It's just, as long as you don't say anything, or as long as you don't think about it, then you don't have to worry about it. But just in doing that, these people worry about it. Okay? I mean, no, they really, dude, it is like serious obsessive compulsive behavior. Okay? A lot of these people. I wonder
And
why they're so
I will be picking on the guys. Now you got a bunch of guys together, and someone lets one rip. I'd be willing to bet there's someone there laughing.
Oh yeah.
You did it. I mean, come on.
Hold my
In this
finger,
case,
dude.
yeah, and so these guys are willing to kill over that. As on the first day we did this, we had someone interrupt and say, "Yeah, in Pakistan, someone got lynched for farting in a mosque." Like, oh yeah, all these rules.
Yeah, because you just ruined their whole. I mean, dude, they had to take off work, or they had, you know what I mean? They had to rush down to the mosque, they had to get there, run in there, and they had to go through all this ritual stuff, and some idiot farts in the mosque, and they have to do the whole thing all over again. That this is not pleasing to Allah. I mean, I'm sorry, Muslims leave Islam. I mean, seriously, dude, it makes no sense.
There's so many problems with the invalidations. I'll be honest, there are some things I think that you have to stop and think about, which I've tried to do. I've tried to be straightforward and honest when I think something. You should have an imam who has a good reputation. But if your imam has a good reputation and he's saying, okay, yes, murder is okay.
Well, you know.
Yeah, I guess that's okay. Well, didn't we just talk about immoral? Your definition of immoral is kind of scary. Okay, you can have Nihat Awads out there saying, yeah, go October 7th. They killed children by baking them in an oven. They raped women and did things to them that are unspeakable. And yeah, and this is one of the leaders of your faith structure, gross. Sorry, not moral at all. Anyone who endorses that, not moral at all.
I think a lot of Christians, actually any non-Muslim, needs to know what moral, immoral, sin, and I don't know what's the opposite of sin in Islam. I mean, they need to know what that is in Islam, because what we do is we imprint our idea of what it is. It's not.
Well, in Islam, this is the biggest difficulty. When they talk about an enormity or sin, you have to remember that Allah doesn't punish sin. Oh. Wait a minute. If Allah doesn't punish sin, I want you to think about this. This is what the Quran and the Hadiths tell us. If Allah does not punish sin, and you read the Quran and it says all Muslims go to
Hell.
HE double hockey sticks. Yeah. So he doesn't punish sin. He might lead the way there. This stuff should be making people think.
It obviously doesn't. They got the fear factor that controls them, not thinking.
And if you don't ask questions, and that's again the whole purpose for this show, is to look at this stuff in Sharia, Islamic law, and ask the very questions. Why we do this is no one else is doing this. It needs to be done, because even the Muslims do not ask the questions. Okay, that's what it says. Okay, that's what it says. But this contradicts this. We can't believe both things at the same time. It's a problem.
But you see, I thought dualism was a part of Islam. Dualism.
It is, and that's it is. So dualism in Islam, in most cases, they can say something to you and me, and they can hold the opposite belief.
Yeah.
So they'll tell us jihad means struggle. Yeah. But when in reality they're lying to us, and it means war against the non-Muslim.
Yeah.
Okay. So they have lied to us. That's the duality. But when the things are directly oppositional and there's no lying going on there, they haven't attempted to deceive anyone. And this is for them, this is like the Sharia we just read. I mean, talking about different levels. Okay, you're outside, you can be on ground level, but you put the Imam on a soapbox. Oh, because he's short. Ooh, okay. I mean, okay, he's the Imam because he's cute. Ugh. He's the Imam. I mean, he's the Imam because he knows Sharia. He can repeat the chapter in the Quran that is not part of the Quran. But if you ask him anything else, hey guys, don't ask this guy anything. He's not the brightest light bulb. Oh, really? You're gonna go to this guy and trust him? Oh, well, he owns the space, so he can do what he wants. I mean, it sounds like some people we know about that lead their own little show, so to speak.
Yes.
It's kind of scary.
But he doesn't do that anymore. He got demoted. Evidently, the lawyer he was renting the office space from kicked him out. But, oh, yeah. There's all kinds of stuff about the Imam in Texas.
Yeah. I want to say this. I think Darcy has nailed it. Choose this day who you will serve. Jesus, the living God, or the best of deceivers. One of the things I don't know if you have ever joined a group on Facebook called Islam is Dying. I recommend it to everybody who is listening. Go to that Facebook group, Islam is Dying.
I'm in that group, yeah.
Oh my gosh, I'm having so much fun. And one of the things I will say for a lot of the things that are said is, that are complaints against Christianity is you're putting your ignorance on parade, and they don't understand, which is kind of humorous. They're telling us they know nothing about what they're saying. They're telling us they don't read for understanding. They're telling us they don't have no clue what Islam teaches. This is so oppositional to any other faith structure. There's no requirement of knowledge of the actual scriptures to lead. This kind of, no matter how many times I'm going to hear this, no matter how many times I'm going to go over this in my head, it's never going to make sense. How can you lead a group in prayer when you know nothing about the God you're supposed to be praying to because you haven't read the scriptures? You know about the law. That's it. That's the only requirement. Why is that? Because there's nothing in the hadith, nothing in the series, nothing in the Quran that tell you how to pray. Here's my suggestion. Look at one thing. You'll find in the Quran, it consistently tells you, ask those who are the believers, the Christians. Ask those who are the Jews. When you don't have answers, ask them. We're going to do what? We're going to search our scriptures and give the answers. How do we pray? In the Christian world, sometimes we pray on our knees. Sometimes but we're allowed to pray standing, sitting, any position. We don't have to bang our head in the ground. We don't have to lay ourselves down on the ground. And we believe you should be praying fervently without ceasing. Oh, that means any place you are, no matter what you're doing, you can be praying. It also means we're not out there, hey, look at me. Not allowed to do that. When you guys get yourselves all together, that's what you're doing. Hey, look at me. Those are vain repetitions. You're not praying. I wish Muslims would understand that one point. If all you're doing is repeating something someone told you about, that you should do this, start asking, where is this in the Quran? It's not there. Who told you that this is the way you have to pray? Well, it's in Sharia. So where in Sharia does it say to do this stuff in the Quran? That it's in the Quran? It's not there. What about the Hadith? It's not there. The Quran says pray 3 times a day. Why does Sharia say 5? Oh, that's in the Hadith. So you're telling us, Muslims, start asking yourself these questions. Now, I'm just going to put it out there. If you have left Islam because of what we're talking about, my suggestion is that you do one thing. I'm going to recommend you read the book of read the book of Matthew. And the reason I recommend the Gospel of Matthew is it really defines the term Messiah. Islam talks about the word Messiah. And they use this word Isa, which is not Jesus. Jesus is the Messiah. He is the fulfillment, the anointed one. He is the fulfillment of the scriptures. This is why he is God. He's both full man and both full God at the same time. Only the guy who is both full man and full God can fill that bill as having died and rose again. Can you kill God? The answer is no. Can you kill the body? Yes. Is God physical? He put on a physical coat when he went into Mary and was born as Jesus. It was a coat, is the best way to put it. Was he here physically? Absolutely. Did the body of Jesus die? Absolutely. Did it raise from the dead? Absolutely. Oh. So was God ever dead? No. This is a cool thing. And he did all that so you can be forgiven for your sins. And he did it for you. And he definitely, I know without a doubt, did it for me. Has he changed me? This is the thing I think is the coolest thing. He changes you from within when you make that choice for Christ. Make that choice to follow Christ. It's up to you. And if you do, please contact Usama Dakdak with Straight Way of Grace Ministry, or contact me. Let us know that you've made a choice for Christ. Thank you, everybody. Good night.
Thanks for watching and God
brother.
bless.
All right.